The fact that they're getting recognized for the work that they're doing, especially as an O-line, they don't get a lot of praise and accolades, and I feel like they only get really seen when they don't do their job. They don't really get the praise when they're doing a hell of a job out there, and I think they've been doing a great job keeping me protected and getting the ball downhill and running the ball at guys, and I'm really happy for them.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Well, I think it might have been a couple weeks ago when you said that early on in your Kansas State career it took you some time to get adjusted to the RPO, the read game. Was there much of a transition in the RPO and read game from Kansas State to here? And if so, when do you feel like you got comfortable enough where you can pull it and you just know those reads so well as you've been able to pull it last?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think there's really any one thing I can put my finger on. I got better at it, got a better feel for it, but it's a different system. There's different things that I'm looking at here. There's different ways that we're reading things. So I kind of had to relearn how we wanted to do them here. But at the end of the day, I do think that, RPOs are kind of a feel at certain times, and, just feeling leverage, feeling guys' eyes, where their eyes are at. And I think a lot of that goes back on experience. And, I've seen a lot of different looks. I've seen probably every sort of, technique a defensive end could play, a linebacker could play. So, you just can't make up reps, and I've seen it and I've had the experience, but, still could get better, man. And, still just need to continue to grind away and continue to feel those things out, because I'm not perfect. I think I've gotten better, and I think, my reads in the run game and the RPO game have been solid, but still could get better.
Stefan Kreisny, Cleveland.com.
Last week or so, Coach Days talked a bit about the Bricks Foundation that you guys have done after every practice. Why is that something that the players, kind of bought into and seem to care about as much?
Yeah, it's huge, man. It's something we talked about a lot in fall camp, and I think it was one of our first meetings in fall camp. It was, we talked about building a foundation, and if you don't have a strong foundation, your house, something happens, house is going to fall down, and you got to start with that foundation. Have a strong foundation. And if you build that every single day and continue to just make it better and better and more stronger, and we've kind of emphasized that, like, every single day matters. And I think that's one of the things that I like the most about that, that brick thing that we're doing, is that, we can visually see that every single day that we're putting in is building up this little brick tower that, we're building. And it's a visual representation of all that work, you're putting in, because when you're in the moment, you don't really see it. It's one of those things that, like, you could work out for, 6 months and you see results at the end of those 6 months, but, like, in the process of that, you don't really, you're not going to just go lift some weights and drop 30 pounds and, look great in one day. Like, it's a process, and it kind of, I think, just throughout the process of things, like, it keeps us grounded and says, this is why we're doing it. And, you look back after a couple weeks and it's like, man, that little brick sculpture is, it's turning into something here. And, it reminds us that every single day, the work that we're putting in doesn't go unnoticed.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
What do you think of Trayvion's route on the outside there, inside back route, and then also you threw a lot to Deuce Vaughn at Kansas State. You got great running backs here that back in the passing game. Just what kind of an advantage is it to have those guys for you, and do you approach it any differently than starting to receivers?
I mean, yeah, you got to approach it a little differently, but I think, Trey's been grinding away at that, man. We all week we were working on that route, and he was getting extra work with it after practice. And I remember going back to spring, throwing balls to him over the shoulder and him catching and working on his ball skills, and he wanted to make that, more of part of his game and catching the ball. And I think he runs great routes. I mean, he broke that guy off. You put a linebacker on Trey, that's disrespectful. That's unfair. Trey's going to run right away from him. And I mean, you saw, I looked to the field and I tried to look the safety off with my eyes, and as soon as I looked over there, 31 just ran, because he thinks I'm going to mech on the inside fade route. But that just shows you that having that ability to put the running back out in space and make a guy miss like that, it gives us a lot of different new options. And when Trey is able to win on a route like that and get open down the field, that I think it's great. It's a whole new facet for our offense, and I think him and Q both run really good routes and catch the ball well, so it's good.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Idol.
Well, you came to Ohio State as a 59% career passer. So you're at 74% right now. What would you attribute that to, the rise?
I think a lot of it's coaching and the way that I've been, taught here. And something, Coach Kelly's emphasized with me since I got here, man, was just completions and how many completions are out there on the field that, it's just easy, and just take them. I feel like a lot of times in my career at Kansas State, I was trying to force things in windows or I didn't really need to. There's checkdowns all over the field, man, and getting the ball to Trey or G or Q in the flats and letting them run for 6 to 12 yards. I mean, there's some plays on Saturday where, I may have missed Mech down the middle running one, on one play, but, I check it down to Q and we get 6 yards out of it. And it's like, oh, we're in 2nd and 4. It's like that's still a pretty good position to be in. There's just completions all over the field, and that was something I really emphasized in preseason training camp. I was shooting for 80% completion percentage every single day. That was something that, me and Billy kind of got together on, and like that was my goal. And I only achieved it a couple times, and it's hard. But I think that helped me so much, and just like completions are devastating to a defense. Whether it's a completion for 0 yards or a completion for 50, like it doesn't matter. Just as long as you're getting the ball in your playmakers' hands. I mean, those defensive linemen are taught they got to run to the ball. They're getting tired. Like anytime you can get a completion is a positive for the offense. And I'm trying to look at it more that way. And I think the way that Coach Kelly's tried to kind of drill that into my mind is kind of change my mindset on it a little bit, and it's helped me just be a lot more efficient in my passing game.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Will, lots of talk about you guys playing 6 straight noon games to end the regular season. What's your opinion on noon games? Do you like them, dislike them?
I kind of like getting up and rolling, man. There's no thought. I think sitting around sometimes, I have no control over that. I don't really mind. I'm going to play whenever they tell us to play, and but there's something I kind of like about just getting up and going. There's less thinking involved. You kind of just get up. Sometimes when you're sitting around for those night games, you get a little. You're sitting in the hotel, and for me, it's more just I just get antsy. I'm like, man, I just want to go. Like, I just want to go play this game. And I don't like sitting around all day, just waiting. So I think there's good. Obviously, the fans. Would it be cool to have a night game? Sure, but man, I'm not worried about it. And I'll play whenever they tell me to play, and it's all good.
You had the opportunity to play at a lot of different stadiums. Just what's it like getting to go play in Wrigley Field as well?
That'll be really cool. I've seen a game there one time. I think I was in like senior in high school. I went out there. I think it was actually at a camp at Northwestern. But that was a cool stadium, man. It'll be interesting to play football in there. But I'm excited, man. It's a historic landmark and in a really cool city. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a cool opportunity.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I'm assuming that was a baseball game you saw, right?
Yeah.
How much confidence do you have in the left side of the offensive line now with Donovan and Carson than you did before whatever the game was, before the Penn State game? The level of confidence, how much has it grown?
Yeah, it's grown. It's grown a lot. I don't think it's grown too much. I think I had a ton of belief in them before that game. I don't think my belief in them wavered at all. I don't think it's really changed. I think I believed in those guys. When Jimmy went down, obviously that's a tough blow, and then Zen goes down, and you got to shuffle guys around a little bit. I think a lot of people around, Buckeye Nation were concerned, and I really wasn't. I was kind of. I knew those guys would step up to the challenge, and I knew that they were ready for it. Carson's played a ton of football. I knew he was ready for the challenge, and he was fired up and excited. I could just see that look in their eye, man. They knew that they were going to go take care of business, and after the performances they put up the last 2 weeks, I'm not surprised. I'm so proud of those guys with how they've stepped into their new roles and done an amazing job. But I'm not surprised, and I think they have a lot more ahead of them, and I'm excited for them going forward.
If I remember right, Donovan was one of the people you talked to before you came here. Is that right?
Yeah. I think I talked to him. I think he told Coach Day that he was coming back like the first day I was here on my visit. So that was like one of the first things that I heard. I was like, oh, Donnie's coming back. Like that's big. So, yeah.
And just what were your impressions of them then, and how have they grown since you've really gotten to know them?
I mean, first time I talked to him, I was like, this guy's, a stand-up guy. Reminded me a lot of my close friends at Kansas State, and I was really tight with a lot of our own linemen. And he's, I just from the moment I started talking to him, I was like, this guy gets it. He's a smart kid. He's really grounded. Just and passionate and wants to be a Buckeye. I mean, he wanted to come back and be a part of this, and that was something I was like, man, like this is different. This team is special, and obviously he's a hell of a player, man, and he does great things on the field. But I think he's an even better guy off it.
And final question, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
On the footwork part of it, especially on the deep ball, how much did you maybe have to retrain and relearn some things when you first got here on some of that stuff, especially when executing deep throws?
A little bit. No, I don't know. It's kind of hard to like put any gauge on that. That's not really something that I really thought about a ton of. Throwing deep balls is throwing deep balls, and you either you hit them or you don't. I underthrew the one to Carnell this weekend. I think sometimes I just try to get a little too cute with it and try and place it. But when I do hit them, it's like I just let it rip. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is just not trying to place the ball and just letting these guys run under it, because we have unbelievable team speed out there. And when I get my feet moving and I don't let them go dead. As long as they're active and alive back there, and I just let it rip and let them run under it, that's when we have success. And I just need to continue to rep that and do that and see that in practice. And I think we're getting better at it. I need to be better at it overall for those guys, because we got some stuff down the field, and we're going to be able to hit down here down the stretch of the season.
Great. Will, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Go Bucks.
Thanks, Will. Mike, you good? You got him?
Might get the trophy room.